Hello and welcome everyone to the 2026 election hustings here in St Lawrence for the Senators. It is great to see such a fantastic turnout this evening. It was the same in St Helier last night for the constables. So thank you so much for making the time this evening. And thank you very much everyone who's joining us online as well. My name is Hannah Shelswell, and just before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. We are not expecting a fire alarm this evening. So if you hear one, please do leave in an orderly fashion and follow the green illuminated signs. If you have a mobile phone in your pocket and haven't done so, could you please take it out now and just check and make sure that that is on silent so we don't have any interruptions. Thank you very much. Just to make you aware as well that we are recording and live streaming tonight's event. So that will be on the vote.je website and also on YouTube. If you're joining us online, then you can access the closed captions, and you can do that by pressing the button at the bottom of your screen now. I am sure that you are all aware, but you can only vote for 9 of the 17 candidates who are standing. So in alphabetical order this evening, Martin Eliga, Tom Binet, Mark Boliat, Alan Brecken, Carl Bush, Guy DeFay, Lyndon Farnham, Ian Gorst, Serena Kirsten Guthrie, Mary Lehegara, Alan Lepavo, Steve Luce, Alan McLean, all independents. Sam Mezek, Reform Jersey, Helen Miles, Elaine Miller, and Bernard Place, all independents. The candidates have agreed this evening that they will each deliver a speech for 3 minutes at the start of the evening before we then go out to questions from the audience. We've got 17 speeches to get through, so that will probably be the first hour. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 questions at a time, and then they're going to take 2 minutes each to answer them. And a microphone will be passed around the room. So those are the rules for this evening, and we do switch things up as we go through the various hustings. So let's not waste any more time this evening. Let's get going. So let's start with Martin Eliga. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, good evening. I think it's a beautiful day today that we are here to start a journey of determining who our next leaders for the next term of office. My name is Martin Eliga. I originally come from Uganda, but I've been in Jersey now for 15 years. The reason why I came to Jersey is not to work. I came because of love. A Jersey girl attracted me. And I could not find my way back to Uganda. The easiest way from Edinburgh University, where I was doing my master's, was to remain in Jersey for, the plan was 7 years. But it seems 15 years is rolling, and I don't know how long. So I thought, well, if I cannot go back to Uganda, where I wanted to go and serve my people, I think I'll enroll into being a global citizen. And the best way of being a global citizen as a master's student of international development was to stay in Jersey. Jersey is a center right now running a lot of interesting things that actually attract the international community. However, last month, about mid of last month, I just thought it's been a long time. I need to get into this thing that I've wanted to do so much, leadership. Not politics. I'm here for leadership first. Politics come next. However, you want to know more about me, you're welcome to visit my website. But just to let you know, I have 5 children born all in Jersey here. And you might be aware that the birth rate in Jersey right now for young people is not good. Everybody is abstaining from giving new birth to babies. But my wife and I, we say, no. Because it is important. You can look at yourselves right now. I'm telling you, the average age group right now, I don't want to mention, because I don't see teenagers here. And that is a concern for me. As a leader that is going to bring change, that is concerned about the future of the island, we need children in Jersey. What are we going to do about it? I am 47. I think we could add another maybe 2 or 3. But we won't be the ones to populate the world. We need young people to fall into this bracket. But how are we going to do it? I have a diversified background in my experience of work. Right now, I have taken off 2 months to do this because I am a child care officer. But I can't do the work as well as campaign.
Martin Aliga, thank you very much. We'll need to stop you
Vote
there.
for Martin
Thank
Aliga
you.
when you're ready.
Tom Binet.
How I wish I'd volunteered to speak first, because this is going to be incredibly dull.
If you could just hold the microphone a little closer, Tom. Thank you.
I'll repeat that. This is going to be incredibly dull. I've been in Ministerial office now for 4 years.
A little closer again, thank you.
Initially, it is. Is that? Yeah. Okay. And initially in infrastructure, and more recently in health. I had been wanting to speak more about health, but 3 minutes won't allow for that. But I thought I would mention, because I think it's probably going to come up in questions, and I'm going to make myself a hostage to fortune here. I do hope that we're going to sign the contract for the hospital before the election date. So that's just hopefully a positive. Moving to the more, equally serious matters. In my view, Jersey's become complacent, and we've started to lose our way. It isn't helped by the fact that we all expect more and better services, and everybody seems to think that we can do that with a smaller government at less cost. And I think it's quite obvious that we can cut our costs, but if we're going to cut them to the extent that we need to, I think we're going to have to accept that we're going to have slightly less services than we've got at the moment. For too long, I think we've lived off the back of a finance industry that's lost its competitive edge, and the overall coordination of which I think is little better than the health service was 2 years ago. I've served in 2 governments now, and both have spent too much time discussing how to spend money and not enough time on how we're going to make more. And in my view, that has to change, and change quickly. That's going to require a much more assertive and, dare I say, more radical approach than we've had in the past, and time isn't on our side. So I'll finish by simply listing some of the key things that I think the next government needs to do. Most importantly, we need to implement the recommendations of the recent competitive review of the finance sector and make sure we apply all the necessary human and financial resources that requires. We need to carry out an internal review of government functions, eliminate anything not essential, and adjust the workforce accordingly. We need to revitalise our town centre to make it an attractive destination for locals and for visitors. We need to strengthen our links with Europe and fully involve our finance and hospitality businesses in coordinating and marketing the island. We need to develop more quality sports facilities, especially for young people, to get them away from their phones and screens and into activities that develop structured and positive human beings. And finally, we need to be straight with you about what we're doing, what we're not doing, and explain why. So I'm standing for a second term because I'd like to be directly involved in making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Boliat.
Thank you. I can't rival the first speaker in terms of background, but I can rival the second in terms of dullness. My own story, born and educated in Jersey, my career's taken me from a cafe and a pub in St. Ballards to some chief executives and chair jobs in Jersey and in the UK. Has that experience given me all the answers? Absolutely not. Far from it. But I think I know how to ask the right questions, how to work with others to tackle the big issues, to make good decisions, and to implement them. So what's my vision for the island? Well, I want Jersey to be what it's always been, a fantastic, special, distinct community, but one that's always been outward-looking, that over the years has developed a succession of highly successful industries that we've sold to the rest of the world. We need to continue in that way. So, what are my policies? Our public finances are under some strain. We want to avoid increasing taxes. That means we have to grow the economy. To grow the economy, we had to remove the barriers to growth. And I think one of them is the planning system, which unnecessarily restricts development and stops people doing what they want to do with their own homes. I think we can change the planning system in a way that does not threaten our environment. More generally, as the Chief Minister has said, we regulate like a big country, and we're not a big country. We need to reduce the regulatory burden on businesses. Now, a special interest of mine, social mobility. Life chances are largely determined by the age of 5. Only 64% of Jersey children who start primary school are at the expected stage of development. We've done some good work on early years. We need to do better. We need to give our young people the best start in life. And we need to ease the pressures on working families struggling with high housing costs and high childcare costs. Jersey is a very special place. I want to keep it that way. I want to collaborate, if elected, with all the state's assembly members, with business and with charities to deliver the sort of government that you, the people of Jersey, deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Brecken.
Thank you. Good evening. Can I ask you to fish this out of your paperwork, because I'm going to refer to some figures, and if you don't see them, you won't believe me. The green bit at the bottom shows expenditure. This is for suppliers to the states of Jersey. The total bill is over £257 million. The green shows in 2022 it was over 218 million. And the pink bit shows it went up to 257 million in 2023. That's an increase of 38 million in 1 year. And that equates to £446,000 per week, or £106,000 a day. That's enough to give each and every one of us £1,000 each a day. It's absolute nonsense, and it's not good financial management. And this is only the year-to-year increase. It's not the whole thing. And for me, that shows, and I've listed the ministers and the assistant ministers, because that is what ministerial government has delivered for us. It's out of control, in my opinion. The thing is, who is responsible? Who is accountable? Well, my answer is, and it's listed on the back page, there's about 20 there who were ministers and assistant ministers. It was their responsibility. But it appears nobody is, and to me, that's not acceptable. I've looked at this, and ministerial government should be delivering all sorts of things to serve our best interests, and I don't think that does. And that is why I'm standing here, because the finances have not been managed responsibly. And I don't think, although the money is long gone, then we need to invent other ways to bring in money, like a tax on the toilet, a sewerage charge, £10 million. People I know are paying for health care when they shouldn't be. They've paid in all their lives. And that's a situation that's not serving us as the people. And if you look, some of the people in here, Tom Binney, Helen Miles, Elaine Miller was Assistant Treasury Minister, and Ian Gorst was Treasury Minister. Well, the question is, what does the Treasury Minister do if he's not looking after our money? And that really questions this system for me. And against that background, the waiting list for more than 1 year for a consultation has gone up from 812 in 24.
Thank you very much. That's your time up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl Bush.
Hello, I'm Carl Bush, and I'm standing for Senator in this exciting 2026 election, just in case anyone wanted to check that they are at the right venue. I'm up against stiff opposition from my fellow candidates, some already with experience of government, but I too come with experience. I held elected office in local government in the UK and held the post of Cabinet Member for Environmental Services, a position that would be equivalent to a ministerial post here in Jersey. At that time, I was also a trustee for Unite Carers, a charity supporting carers in Mid-Devon, from where I'm from, and a subject that is very close to my heart. I know how government works, and that experience counts for a lot when it comes to addressing the major issues facing the island today. Cost of living, housing, government, economy and health, all issues I fully understand and have experience. I also have a background in financial services, and I work hard at keeping my skill sets up to date, this year completing the equivalent of study time of 2 degrees in 5 years. I understand the finance industry, and I understand the pressure we're under to adapt. For all these issues, we need a government that can adapt to change. We need politicians that can be agile, flexible, focused, with fresh ideas. We need a fresh face. You know what you get from me, what you won't get from me is glossy mail shots and posters saying vote for me, Carl Bush, in the hope that my name sticks on election day. But what you will get through media is an accomplished CV of experience and documented history of hard work for Jersey and its community. Along with the community, we have grown a social enterprise project called Step 55 into an activity hub, providing Tai Chi, yoga, ballet, line dancing, all activities that are important to us, especially as we age, with the focus that prevention is better than cure when it comes to health. We also support charities and provide activity classes to engage dementia and brain injury, and aim to, by the end of June, be providing 200 Jersey adults with an hour's worth of activity per week. I've calculated that this would be saving the health system £125,000 a year, which isn't bad for a community interest project. Vote me in, and I will show you the power of community.
We'll have to ask you to stop there. Thank you. Guy Defay.
Well, good evening, St. Lawrence. I should start with an apology about my appearance. Regrettably, I broke my dentures, and I hope that it's not too discomforting for you out there. But if I may take a phrase from London Underground, please don't mind the gap. A lot of you remember when I used to work for Channel Television, an exciting 6 years of my life when Jersey, I can only say, was absolutely rocking. Fort Regent was holding big band concerts. We were getting all sorts of people over to star in local cabarets, and really it hasn't been the same since. But I know that you're all worried primarily about the cost of living. Now, I spent my years after working at Channel Television in London, working for ITV on the ITN World News. I also worked for Sky, and I ended up working with CNBC Business News and Euronews in France. So it won't come as a surprise for me to let you know that if you're following international news, the globe is in big trouble. Not only with the carve-up around the Straits of Hormuz, but we're all finding out how much in debt the entire planet is. All the major countries owe trillions in debt. We are all living on credit. And at some point, even though Jersey is out here, nicely sheltered, the ripples of this potential massive disaster are likely to come our way. How are we going to deal with it? I haven't got particularly good news in terms of cost of living, because we import so much, we're bound to be affected by what is going on around us. But what could we do locally? My personal view is that we can adjust taxation. Now, this will come as a bit of a surprise to you all, I'm sure, but I would suggest that cost of living issues will impact on the less well-off more than anyone. So I'm going to suggest take another look at GST. It's one of the ways that wealthy people pay more tax, and if you're worried about how much you're paying, go for the cheaper products. Anyway, it's time for me to wind up. I'm recycling my manifestos from the Greville St Martin election. Reuse, recycle was the watchword when I was at Transport and Technical Services.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening.
Lyndon Farnham.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lyndon Farnham, and I have the honour of being Jersey's current Chief Minister. I was born here in Jersey. I have lived here all my life. I've raised my family here. And I'm standing for election, again, because I care deeply about the kind of Ireland we are shaping for our future generations. I think this election is about more than politics. It is about the direction Jersey takes at a time of real change. Around the world, we are seeing economic instability, rising costs, conflict, and growing pressure on living standards. And we feel those pressures here too. Since becoming Chief Minister in 2024, my focus has been clear: to restore stability across government, strengthen discipline in our public finances, and get government working together and getting things done. That has also meant recognising where we have fallen behind and putting ourselves firmly back on track. We have made some progress, but of course, there's always more to do. After years of underinvestment, we are investing in Jersey again, protecting capital budgets and taking a planned, responsible approach to renewing our infrastructure. This means upgrading schools and health facilities, improving our roads, extending mains water and drainage, strengthening coastal defences, investing in community spaces, sport and leisure facilities, parks and gardens, and the wider public realm. My vision is clear. It is for a Jersey where young islanders can realistically aspire to own a home, raise their families, and choose to stay here because they feel confident about the future. A Jersey where our older community feels secure, supported, and able to live independently with affordable care available when it is needed. A Jersey where businesses can grow and compete without being weighed down by unnecessary costs and bureaucracy. I am optimistic about Jersey's future, and I think we all need to be a little bit more positive from time to time. We are a resilient island with enormous strength, a strong community of talented, hard-working people, a successful local economy, a clean and safe environment, a truly beautiful place to live. But in these challenging times, I believe Jersey needs leadership that is steady, experienced and forward-looking, honest about the challenges, takes responsibility and gets things done. I believe that our best years lie ahead of us if we have the confidence and determination to build them together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ian Gorst.
Good evening. I'm Ian Gorst, an independent candidate. Like Martin, I'm here because of love. But I am delighted to be here in St Lawrence this evening. Over the years, I've accompanied numerous visiting dignitaries to some of the important historical sites in this parish, most notably, of course, the war tunnels, which today serve as a fitting tribute to all those who suffered and died in those dark occupation years. And as we kick off our democratic process here tonight, we show that their sacrifices were not in vain. I welcome the return of the island-wide mandate, and I'm standing for Senator so that I can continue to be a strong voice for Jersey over the next 4 years. representing our interests, promoting our economy, and building a sustainable future for our community. These are, as we have heard, challenging times, and they call for experienced, calm, and serious leadership. And I'm asking for your support to continue. I've built strong relationships with governments in the UK, Europe, and further afield, which has enabled me to support our financial services, agriculture, dairy, digital, and creative industries to grow and find new markets. I also want to drive forward our competitiveness strategy so that we deliver economic growth, embrace innovation, and improve our productivity in the face of increased global competition. A strong economy pays for good public services. In recent years, government has grown at an unsustainable rate. Throughout that time, I have been, and I will continue to be, a voice for restraint to control public spending. The public sector is made up of many talented and committed islanders, and they must be empowered to deliver efficiencies, cut bureaucracy, and deliver better services. Government needs to be an enabler, interfering less frequently in our lives and focusing on improving frontline services, including health, education, and policing. At a time of global instability, of course we face challenges. To ease cost of living pressures, I would freeze duties, raise tax thresholds, and increase allowances, as I did when I was Treasury Minister. We should continue, of course, as well to promote consumer choice, including by finally delivering a new budget supermarket. As a father of 2 daughters, I am aware of the challenges facing young people. Jersey has always adapted to changing times. With strong, effective, and proven leadership, we will do so again. I ask for one of your votes on June the 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Serena Kirsten Guthrie.
Hello, there you go. Can you please reset the clock? That'd be great. Look, good evening. My name is Serena Kirsten, or better known as Serena Guthrie, and for those of you who don't know who I am best known for being the ex-England netball captain and Commonwealth Games gold medalist. I am standing in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, this evening because, quite frankly, Jersey just isn't performing as well as it should be. And after a 16-year career in elite sport, I understand that when performance wavers, you cut to the core of the issue, you change the culture, and you build a team that can deliver. That is why I'm standing for Senator. I spent my career in elite environments where accountability is non-negotiable and where teamwork is the difference between winning and losing, where results really matter. For me, Jersey doesn't lack good ideas, it just lacks clear direction, discipline, and alignment. These are the types of things that I'll bring to public service. I'm a mum of 2, and like many families at the minute, I'm feeling the pressure. We're all under pressure. It's too expensive here, housing's a constant concern, and for many young people, work-life balance is simply just not attainable, to the point where I've questioned whether staying here myself is a realistic venture, and I've had friends leave the island because they just can't simply afford to live here. This is just not acceptable. Cost of living, as we've all heard, huge challenge. Government is wasting money and we're not bringing in enough. We can't afford more of the same. And at every election, hundreds of promises are made to the taxpayer, but not enough are delivered. We need more candidates working as a team, pulling in the same direction if we are going to succeed. Less talk, as we've heard down there, more action. That's why I'm supporting priorities such as more cheaper options, rebooting local economy, and cutting government waste. We have to bring down the cost of everyday living by enabling cheaper providers to operate here. We have to cut down government waste. We need to improve efficiency, follow through on decisions properly. And we have to find ways to support modern families with affordable childcare and policies that reflect modern life and enable people to raise families here in the way that they see fit. Additionally, I'm extremely passionate about getting PE teachers back into primary schools. It is critical. We've heard one of the stats. It is shocking. That's an inner city stat. It's not acceptable. Our children deserve better. And we have to invest in preventative health, sport, and well-being to enable us to relieve pressure on long-term services and make sure islanders can live long and happy lives. We have the talent, we have the potential. We need to build a team that feel responsibility and can deliver for you standing in front of us here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Lehegara.
Thank you and good evening. Born and raised in Jersey to a farming family, my career path has been financial roles in tax, the airport, agriculture and audit and accounts for small businesses. 25 years in policing followed, with a cross-section of roles, responsibilities, leading teams of various sizes, being the first female inspector in Jersey. I joined the States Assembly in 2018, working in scrutiny, including Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel Chair, delivering reviews on mental health, securing funding for a crisis bed at Orchard House. Alongside reviews of maternity, a member of the Planning Committee, Public Accounts Committee, and a variety of other duties. The last 2 years, I've been the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. I'm a member of the Association of Accounting Technicians, and I hold an LLB in law. I believe that team working is one of my strengths. In my policing career, working in partnership with the public and other agencies, I led teams of various sizes to deliver results in matters ranging from community initiatives to commanding critical incidents such as public events, serious road traffic collisions, suspicious deaths and firearms incidents. I've employed this collaborative approach in my political roles, both in scrutiny and as a minister, working with teams to improve public services and advancing legislative reforms. Cost of living is clearly an issue for many islanders, and although we may need to make provision initially, I do feel that we need to be considering the longer-term resilience rather than short-term fixes. Brexit, the pandemic, and global uncertainty clearly require a holistic approach. Whilst the finance industry provides a huge amount of our revenue and needs to be supported, we need to make ourselves more self-sufficient. Appreciating that we can't fully provide all our needs, I do believe that we need to take a look at what we could achieve. As an example, we should provide more support for industries to produce more or retain more of our produce on Ireland. This would also reduce the environmental impact of importing of plastics and also transportation. Support and encourage on-island upskilling programs and continual development using further and higher education is necessary so that we can promote on-island talent. This may encourage islanders to return following university. Let's not say no to our young people when they want to return because they lack experience. Let's say yes, and we will develop them further once they come back, because once we've lost them, they don't. Jersey's infrastructure has suffered from long-standing underinvestment, making deferred maintenance costlier and hindering growth.
Thank you. Alan Lepavo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Lepavo, and I'm standing because I feel Jersey needs a community-focused leadership at a time when many islanders are under real pressure. I'm proud to be what I call a Jersey mongrel, with deep roots and a family story that reflects the mix of people that make Jersey, this island, what it is. This isn't just where I live, it's home. Through my work with young people, families and community organisations, I've seen both the strength of our island and the strain many are under. Too many people are struggling with the cost of living. Too many families feel the lack of housing. and too many young people are questioning whether their future is here at all. That's not sustainable, and it needs urgent practical attention. My focus is on 3 areas. Firstly, the cost of living. Looking at support systems and practical ideas that strengthen support chains, including exploring more direct links with France. Second, young people and families, because if we lose them, we lose Jersey's future. That means improving access to housing and creating real options for the older generation to downsize without leaving their communities. Providing opportunities for young people to develop their skills, knowledge and experience on island. And third, responsible financial management. In short, that means earning more or spending less. I'm not a career politician and I'm not driven by ideology. I believe in listening, working collaboratively and focusing on the work that needs to be done. I also believe Jersey works best when 3 parts are working together. A strong economy driven by commerce, an effective, focused government that produces policies and legislation that improves the lives of islanders, and a supported charity and community sector properly funded where it delivers essential services. You won't always agree with my decisions. That's just life, I'm afraid. But you will know it's thoughtful, balanced, and rooted in what's best for Jersey. If elected, I will work hard, stay accessible, and focus on outcomes, not headlines. I'd be grateful for your support, but above all, please use your vote for a better Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Luce.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Steve Luce. In a previous life, I was a farmer in St Martin's with cattle, vegetables, flowers. I owned Jersey Oyster Company, growing oysters and mussels, and Happy Hens, producing free-range eggs. But 15 years ago, I stood for politics, and I had 2 words in my manifesto, which I've tried to use all the way through my political career, and that is working together. And when we look at the challenges ahead, not just for yourselves, but for government, for UK, for Europe and around the globe, we really have some challenges coming down the line in the next few years, and we're going to have to work together like never before to get over them. I'm standing for Senator because I've always wanted the Senators to come back. I favour the island-wide mandate. I believe that ministers in government should be senators, and if I'm fortunate enough to get re-elected, I would like to seek to continue in my current role as Environment Minister. It's not an easy role because I have to make decisions, and every time you make a decision, you please some people, and other people maybe are not so pleased, but I take that role seriously, and everything I do is do for the betterment of people in the island to the best of my ability. I've brought in a new rented dwelling licensing law with working with both tenants and landlords. Recently brought in a new animal welfare law protecting animals and giving us a great deal more ability to act when they're being dealt a bad hand. And most recently with the Health Minister, Tom Binney, working on PFAS issues which have not been dealt with before. And that's a huge challenge and one that continues. The next island plan is something that will come down the line in the next 4 years, and it's going to be an enormously important document. I want to be part of putting that island plan together and taking it through the States Assembly. It will see this island out probably to somewhere near 2040, and when you look at it like that, you realise what an important document it will be. We're going to need new sites for nursing and retirement homes for older people like myself. We're going to need new sites rezoned for light industry so we can diversify the economy and create jobs. We're going to need to find even more sites for proper affordable housing, and government are going to have to put their hands in their pockets to make sure those houses are affordable for young families. One of my most successful things recently was to bring in over £6 million annual budget for farming and fishing. I'm very proud to have done that. I want to keep brown cows in green fields. I want to use that money next year to encourage farmers and fishermen to produce more crops and more catching for local consumption. That's vital. On infrastructure, we need to spend more money on drains and roads. We need to find a way to do that. We need to address social media and the damages it's doing.
Thank you. Alan McLean.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I must say it's wonderful for the election campaign to start here in my home parish of St. Lawrence. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted so many of you are here as well. A little bit of background. I served as Economic Development Minister from 2008, during the beginning of the global financial crisis, which wasn't great timing, I have to say, and later as Treasury Minister from 2014 to 2018. After retiring from politics, I focused on my then young family, my business, and serving on several boards, including Genuine Jersey, which I'm sure is familiar to many of you. I did not expect to return to politics. It wasn't part of the plan. But I, like many islanders, have become increasingly concerned about the direction Jersey is heading. People are working hard, yet too many feel they are falling behind. The weekly shop costs more. Housing costs more. Energy costs more. And too many islanders are beginning to wonder whether the Jersey they worked hard to build is slowly becoming unaffordable for their children and their grandchildren. At the same time, government continues to grow larger, more expensive and more bureaucratic. Ladies and gentlemen, Jersey is at a crossroads. There is no magic money tree. If government consistently spends beyond its means, islanders eventually pay the price through higher taxes, rising debt, and a higher cost of living. Last year alone, government spent £118 million more than it earned. That cannot continue indefinitely. We must restore financial discipline, control spending, and focus government on what really matters: strong public services, value for money, and growing the economy. I have the experience supporting economic growth. As Economic Development Minister, we established Digital Jersey, Jersey Business, to support growth and diversification. We improved connectivity, including the introduction of EasyJet and the Heathrow link, and supported new opportunities in tourism, technology, and local enterprise. As Treasury Minister, public finances were tightly controlled, and budgets were balanced over a 4-year cycle. We need that discipline again. But we also need modernisation and reform. We should use technology to speed up planning decisions, similar to what they do in Singapore, reduce delays and cut unnecessary bureaucracy. My priorities are simple: a more affordable, more competitive, and more confident Jersey, living within our means. I am not standing because I need a political career. I'm standing because I care deeply about this island, and I believe my senior political and private sector experience can help Jersey get back on track. I want Jersey to once again be a place where hard work is rewarded, enterprise is encouraged, and young people can realistically build a future.
Thank you. Sam Mezek.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sam Mezek, and I've been a States member for the last 12 years as both a Deputy and Senator, and I've served in various roles in the Assembly, including Chief Scrutineer, and for the last 2 years as Minister for Housing. I'm running for election because I want to play my part in helping the next government steer the island back onto a path down which islanders can believe that Jersey will be a place of hope and opportunity once again. Previous generations experienced a Jersey that felt like it was on the up, where if you worked hard, you'd be able to afford a home, raise a family in comfort, and have a happy life. We had good services and public finances were strong. But for the last 2 decades, Jersey hasn't felt that way. The economy has stagnated, real terms earnings have been frozen, government spending has become unsustainable, and worst of all, many young people in particular have felt that Jersey doesn't offer that place of opportunity anymore, and so have looked to other places to live their lives instead. I liken this to being like a tide. The tide comes in and it goes out. In previous decades, the tide was rising, but for too long, it has felt like the tide has been receding. The job of the next government must be to turn the tide, and move Jersey from managed decline to a renewal. And I believe that this can happen, but only with a government that is united and represents the diversity of the island, and that is prepared to make tough decisions, but with purpose. Its priorities, I believe, must be to address the cost of living, to prepare Jersey for the challenges of the future, and to restore accountability to government. In the last term of office, we had two governments, and the second took a slightly different approach. And I'm proud that I played my part in that alongside my Reform Jersey colleagues to start turning things around. The outgoing government, after just 2 years, leaves office having introduced 15 hours free childcare for 2 to 3-year-olds, expanded health benefits to 1,300 more pensioners, and pioneered a new first-time buyer scheme. And last year, it saved £45 million by cutting back on consultants, temporary contracts, and recruiting to unnecessary roles. If we're to turn the tide, we need to build on that and get our economy back on track too, so that it can generate the prosperity for all of us to enjoy. If you want a candidate who's an effective politician, a decisive minister, and a capable leader of a team in the States that is constructive and unified, I hope you'll consider voting for me, Sam Mezek, on the 7th of June, because together we can turn the tide.
Thank you. Helen Miles.
Good evening, St Lawrence. I'm Helen Miles, and I'm standing as an independent candidate for Senator. As a former parishioner and pupil at St Lawrence Primary School, I'm very pleased to be kicking off the Hustings in familiar territory with a lot of familiar faces. As a member of the Optimist Battle of Flowers Club, I've spent many an enjoyable evening here in St Lawrence, not to mention a misspent youth at Quavara Youth Club. My background is in criminal justice. I have a PhD in criminology, and I had a 30-year career working for Customs and Immigration, Probation and Aftercare, and the States of Jersey Police. I was also a founding member of Autism Jersey, serving most recently as its vice chair, and I continue to fundraise for that charity. Since 2022, I've been a deputy for St Brelard. I've served as Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and I'm now the chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel and a member of the Children Education and Home Affairs Panel. So this has given me a very balanced experience of serving both in government and on scrutiny. As Home Affairs Minister, I established the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force and delivered a Building a Safer Community framework to support early intervention and reduce crime. I also introduced a 3-year work permit to help the recruitment of hospitality staff and negotiated a visitor scheme to increase the numbers of French day trippers. Our economy depends on strong and reliable travel links. In the UK, efforts are being made to stop the boats. In Jersey, admittedly in a very different context, we'd just like to start the ferries. On scrutiny, I led a review to strengthen and, where necessary, modernise our vital parish system and how it interacts with government. I cherish Jersey's traditions, and to protect and maintain them, it's very important that we adapt and evolve. As a backbencher, I've brought propositions to deliver more first-time buyer homes in St Helier and to increase provision for those wishing to downsize. I'm standing for Senator so that I can use my career experience working together with colleagues to help address our challenges, which, as we know, are many. We must control state spending, live within our means, and focus on the front line. We should review the impact of the flat rate card for freight imports, which has had a mixed reception from businesses. My full manifesto for positive change is on your seat, and please consider me for one of your votes on the 7th of June. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Miller.
Hello, my name's Elaine Miller. I was first elected as a deputy in this district in 2022. Since then, I've been Treasury Minister, Assistant Minister for External Relations and Minister for Social Security. Before being elected, I had a successful career in law and financial services. I was a Jersey advocate and the first woman to hold the office of Viscount. I tried to find practical solutions to problems and to make sensible and thoughtful decisions. I can get things done, and I've worked hard to deliver positive outcomes for the island. The things I'm most proud of are that I brought the proposition that returned senators to the Assembly. As Minister for Social Security, I reduced the cost of GP visits by £20 in 2023 and increased pensioner benefits. I've supported the recent important work to ensure that our financial services industry continues to succeed in an increasingly competitive market. If elected, I will focus first on the cost of living. Affordability of housing is a known issue, but an underlying problem is that parents are often paying huge fees for childcare, which puts a mortgage out of reach. We need to find better ways of providing and funding childcare. Second, we have to ensure that financial services continues to develop and grow. But we need to think about all our local businesses, which underpin our quality of life. We have to enable all businesses to succeed so that our economy grows. I'll be aiming to reduce red tape and complex regulation which cause cost and stress for business owners. I'd look to promote new businesses by addressing how social security contributions are calculated for startups and by trying to harness investment and mentorship from the private sector. Third, we have to limit the cost of government. There are meaningful steps we can take to control government spending, such as returning to a multi-year budget and removing internal inefficiency. We can spend a long time producing long reports that few people read. It's important that in addressing today's challenges, we don't create even more for our children's generation. I'd like to see a clear population strategy that addresses the needs of young and old into the future. For example, we need to plan carefully for our school estate and future careers. Older people don't downsize because of a lack of suitable property. A first-time buyer flat doesn't suit everyone, so we need to build for our older community. Future health and long-term care provision have to be a priority. It's important that we find solutions that work for Jersey now. I will continue working hard to deliver effective and fair outcomes that benefit our community and our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernard Place.
Good evening. Like many islanders, I'm concerned about the cost of living, pressure on housing, and whether public services are giving islanders the value they deserve. My name is Bernard Place, and after 40 years in public service, including many years as a registered nurse, I'm standing as an independent candidate for senator because I believe Jersey needs practical reform, not more promises. I've worked from the front line to executive board level, and I've seen both the strengths of our public services and where they need reform. Housing, healthcare, ageing, and the economy are now deeply connected challenges. If we want to improve living standards, we cannot simply keep asking islanders to pay more while expecting different results. Before asking taxpayers for more money, we should first ask whether services can be organised more effectively and whether more resources can reach the front line. Healthcare is especially important. It's our largest public service, our largest employer, and one of the biggest pressures on public finances. But it's also one of the biggest opportunities for sensible reform. I know the difference between spending that supports doctors, nurses, and frontline care and spending that grows bureaucracy without improving services for patients. We should be redesigning healthcare around patients and frontline care while making sure the new hospital delivers long-term value for islanders. This election is also an opportunity to widen the experience and perspectives in the States Assembly. Now, I respect those who already serve, but I believe there's value in bringing in people with practical experience of leading services and managing change. Many of you may have read my articles in the Jersey Evening Post, and the feedback I received helped shape my decision to stand in this election. One word came back again and again in that feedback, and that was the word sensible. You write sensible things, you say sensible things. And at first I was a little perturbed about that, but then I thought, I'll take that. Jersey needs sensible, because after 40 years in public service, I've learned that the loudest answer is not always the best one. The best solutions are usually practical, measured, sensible. And that is the approach I hope to bring to the States Assembly as one of your 9 senators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Right, it is time now for questions, and we have a microphone that's going to go around the room. Jude is going to help us with that, so thank you very much for your help this evening. As I mentioned, we are going to take 2 questions at a time, and the candidates will have 2 minutes maximum to answer, and the bell will ring if they reach that maximum time. The rules for the room, please. Questions must be brief. We are short on time as we have 17 candidates. So please keep them short as possible, and I will ask you to curtail your questions if you don't get to the point. I have been asked to mention that we politely ask that questions are not offensive in any way this evening, and if that does happen, you may be asked to stop talking or potentially to leave the room. Your questions must also be relevant to all of the 17 candidates. So please avoid asking them about their track record, for example, in the States, because some of them have not stood before. Okay, so we're going to take 1 question from 1 person at a time. It's unlikely we'll get to 2 questions from anybody. And can I ask that we start on this side of the room? We'll take 2 questions from this side of the room, and then we'll go to this side of the room to keep it nice and speedy. Okay, so hands up for those who'd like to ask a question. The gentleman over there, thank you very much.
Thank you to all the candidates. It's very interesting. I've enjoyed your speeches and food for thought. My question to all of you is this. Jersey does not have a coherent and transparent immigration and population strategy in place. It never has done, and it certainly doesn't have one now. Do you consider it needs one, and would you support one if necessary? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a second question from this side of the room, if we have one. Yes, the gentleman at the back in the check shirt. Thank you.
Hi there. It's just a brief one. As a younger voter, climate is very important to me, and I would like to know if any candidates would support or champion unpopular but necessary climate legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start at this end. It's been agreed. So, Bernard, if you would like to go first with answering the questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, it seems fairly straightforward. We do need a strategy in terms of population and immigration. But the key is, for what purpose? Population and immigration has a key contribution to make to future growth. But we can't use population to drive that growth in the way that we've done in previous years. So I think a selection, a notion that we are allowing people in who can make a positive contribution to our economy is absolutely vital. And those will be both quality and quantity in terms of the people that we'd want to come in. In terms of unnecessary climate change, I think we need to be clear that there aren't that many climate deniers in Jersey. There are people who have concerns about the narrative of climate change, and we need to respect that and understand why it is that those people perhaps don't support the science that many of us do. And for that, what I think one of the main things we need to do is actually work on the things that we can change practically in Jersey, whether that's housing insulation, whether that's about waste. There are many things that we can affect directly on the island, and we should focus on those.
Thank you. If you'd like to pass the microphone, thank you.
Thank you. I mentioned population strategy in my speech, and yes, I absolutely agree that we do need to think about immigration and population strategy. We need to think about, we have a very changing demographic, we have an older population, we have a declining birth rate. We need to think about how we manage those things into the future, how we provide education, healthcare, housing, and immigration will be a part of that. We can't think, I think for a long time we've had the mindset that the world is beating a path to Jersey's door. The world is a very competitive place for employment. We are competing for people to come to Jersey now, and we need to think very carefully about how we attract people to Jersey, how we keep people here, and how we attract the new people that we need to the island. In terms of climate legislation, I'm not quite sure what an unpopular piece of legislation might be. I'm not a climate change denier. I think it is very obvious to us. But I think we have to accept, and this is in my manifesto that you'll see, we have to accept that there is nothing we can do in Jersey that is going to change climate change globally. We have to do the right thing. We have to keep trying to reduce our footprint. But if we're going to spend money, we should spend it on protecting Jersey, our sea defences, making sure that we have sustainable energy and sustainable water into the future. We could be looking at shortages of water in 10 or 20 years. We have to focus on that. We need to focus on sustainable transport and energy and housing. So yes, we do have to do what we can to respond to climate change, but we should do it for the benefit of Jersey and to make sure that Jersey is not adversely impacted by climate change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, in terms of population, we have to maintain a stable population that meets the needs of our economy. One of the things I think that is quite noticeable is we've always had a population policy in the past to keep people out. And that has either been through the Control of Housing and Work law or the housing qualification system. The state that we find ourselves in now is we actually have an insufficient number of people coming into the island. So I think there needs to be some work to do, particularly for foreign nationals coming in, to look at our work permit policy whereby we can bring in people to work temporarily. I think one of the things that we do need to do is focus on our local talent. I think we should have policies that prioritise local people, particularly young people, young graduates coming back, so that actually they have a job and they are not necessarily competing with people who we're going to be bringing in. In terms of climate legislation, I'm not actually a fan of that. I would rather have policies and procedures that motivate and influence people to do the right thing. We haven't actually even got the whole of the island operating a recycling scheme at the moment. We are making strides about reuse. We have things like the repair cafe. Legislation invariably is very expensive. It takes a great deal of time, and I would prefer policies that would motivate and influence people to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, of course we need a population policy, and the landscape on this has changed drastically in the last 10 years. I remember when I first went into the States, we had a target for net inward migration that we were exceeding in an unsustainable way every year. And then Brexit and COVID hits, and now we find ourselves in a completely different situation. But if we have a population policy, we have to bear in mind that it has to be interconnected with all sorts of other issues like education, housing, and infrastructure. And there are choices to be made there. For what it's worth, I think the two things that I would want a population policy to prioritise is firstly, it should encompass incentives for young Jersey people to either stay in Jersey or come back to Jersey after their studies. I think there's more that we could be doing that in things like housing incentives, extra support for education as well. So that ought to be a priority as part of that strategy. But secondly, we have to make sure that when people are coming to Jersey, that they are treated with dignity and respect and not seen as disposable because they might only be here for a short period of time. Everybody who's living and working in Jersey ought to be treated with dignity and respect and have rights under the law. In terms of necessary but unpopular initiatives on climate change, I think we haven't done ourselves any favours in terms of stoking that kind of anti-woke backlash that there has been against climate change in recent years by adopting policies that were unpopular, like subsidies for people buying their third, fourth, fifth in a vehicle as long as it's electric, whilst telling people in St Helier they can't have parking spaces. But I think that we can get around that by actually going for the popular stuff as well. We've recently set up a Green Skills Academy that's going to give young people skills and job opportunities whilst going out and doing that work on people's homes, making them more energy efficient. That's good for the economy, it's good for those young people, and it's good for the climate agenda as well. I don't see why it should be contradictory. I am a subscriber to the principle of a just transition where you combine all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. This runs the risk of becoming quite repetitive very soon, I'm afraid. But as far as the population and immigration matter is concerned, sensible population strategy is absolutely right, although the picture has changed in recent years dramatically. Whereas a few elections ago, that was the top of the agenda as to how we protected the island from masses of people coming in. The reality is that people have been leaving Jersey and the numbers are actually down. So there's less pressure in that respect. But that doesn't mean that one shouldn't try to define exactly what the island feels is acceptable, and indeed, for that matter, what our infrastructure can manage in terms of schooling, hospitals, and all the rest of it. We're building a very expensive hospital for a population that is actually shrinking, albeit that it's getting older, so the pressures are slightly different. So the population policy should be sensible and proportionate for the future, not looking backwards as it has done perhaps in the past. We also need to bear in mind the need to get the right people into the island in order to service industries, key industries like agriculture and tourism. I'm afraid that there's a struggle there getting people to come and stay in the island for long enough. It's very difficult for businesses when they have to train somebody up and then they have to leave again and then they have to bring more people in and train them up again. It's not really cost effective from a business perspective. So we need a bit of common sense with regard to that. On the climate change issue, the gentleman who asked the question said unpopular. I'm not sure, he didn't define exactly what he meant by unpopular. I think my colleague next to me talked about the woke agenda, and I think in some respects climate change has gone right across the spectrum. What we need to be is sensible and practical. Clearly we want to protect our environment, clearly, but we want to do it in a way that is sensible and is affordable. The climate debate that occurred in the States in 2019 was putting a bill of £300 million on the state, on all of us, and that's a huge amount of money.
As Alan said, this is going to get a bit repetitive, but the answer on population is that there isn't a good answer. Everything is... The least worst option is to increase the working population of the island. We have to do that, otherwise we're in big trouble. Social Security needs to be funded, and it's funded by those who work, and the smaller the number of people who work, the more Social Security they will have to pay. We need to increase the number of people working on this island. There's ways we can do that. Certainly funding our students to go away with a full grant, if they go away to do a sensible degree and promise to come back to the island and work for us, is one way. Giving tax incentives to companies to employ those people is another way. But the population of the island has to rise. There's a huge number of people like myself, the ageing population, which are going to need looking after, and Social Security needs to be paid for, and it can only be paid for by the working people. As for climate change, obviously, as the Environment Minister, I've had a lot to do with this. We do have some laws in place at the moment already to put money in the coffers to help vehicle emissions duty, and we take a small amount of fuel duty as well to go into the Carbon Emergency Fund, which we use to fund things like moving people away from oil and gas boilers to electric. And we have to accept that we need to move to a more electric world in the coming years. It's the way that we reduce our carbon, and reducing our carbon helps the globe. We've got to do our bit. It's not good enough not to try our very best. Climate is changing. Our crops are suffering. Our animals, our cows, for example, are having to be vaccinated against diseases which we've never seen before. And in the sea, we have fish, crabs, lobsters, all starting to move away from our waters because they're warming. So we need to do something about it before it becomes really, really serious, and everybody needs to play a small part in that if they can.
Population is always going to be a challenge for us. 9 by 5, too many people. we can't accommodate them. But we, like everyone else has said, we need a working population to sustain our ageing population. From my own personal experience, being linked to the tourism and leisure industry, we rely heavily on migrant workers, and we need to ensure that those industries can still access that workforce in a respectable and justified way. As for climate control, I really believe that will come through legislation around buildings. We can build better homes, and we can put in better infrastructure to support turning over to greener energy sources like electricity. Thank you.
Like everyone's already said, we obviously need some sort of policy, but I think what we need to do is establish actually what we need, who we need, and what sort of skills they are. And as I said in my earlier speech, I think the critical part of a lot of this is actually getting people coming back to Jersey, training them on Ireland, and continuing to develop them. So I think we do need to have a policy in relation to immigration, but we need to obviously ensure that what we're getting is the skills that we need. Thinking about AI and all of the other options, some of those skills and some of those jobs will soon go to alternative ways. In relation to climate legislation, I do have some concerns in relation to bringing more and more legislation forward. We have already got some policies that sit in place in relation to what we're going to do and how we're going to become greener. And maybe we all need to start thinking about actually increasing our bus service and actually reducing cars in relation to the future. But in relation to the legislation, I always have concerns about legislation because legislation always costs, and that means more staff to actually implement that legislation. So let's be careful because legislation often costs.
Thanks for your question. So I think for me, to answer your first question, we've got to think very pragmatically, very sensibly when it comes to immigration and population. I think a lot of people already have referred to young people on the island. I had many people at a candidate fair already writing off Jersey because they don't feel like it's a place that they can come back to. That for me is the first part of how we start to solve some of this. We need to attract Jersey-born people who are going off island to get skill sets to come back and help tackle this issue. In terms of climate change legislation, I'm really, passionate on energy resilience, and I think there are some options that we have already started to explore here within government that we can continue to explore. I'm a huge advocate for solar panels and electricity, and I think we need to continue to push for better energy resilience. Behaviour of people, that we can do things like Mary was saying there around, improving buses, for example, out west. The bus connectivity isn't great. So can we do things around infrastructure and transport to better enable behaviours that can also, tackle the energy situation across the island?
Thank you. You asked, I think, two things really, immigration and population. Of course, our immigration policy largely follows the United Kingdom's because we're in the common travel area. I think post-Brexit, when it's got more difficult to travel and we've got all of that friction, there is a question for us to have as a community about the value that that brings to us, but that's a long-term question that we've got to think very carefully about. When it comes to population, the other candidates have talked about the relationship between working age and non-working age, and that is critical to deliver the public services that we all need. But we also know that in certain sectors of our economy, AI and technology is going to be transformative, and therefore how those industries work and the working people that we need in those industries is going to change as well. And you've got something called agentic AI where you can get value out of it and the government can get value out of it as well. In external relations, we have something called the Diaspora Programme. Largely it's currently based in London, but what we're aiming to do is through that programme make people who have been in Jersey, have got a connection with Jersey, know what's available to them, and encourage them to come back. When it comes to climate legislation, of course, the Paris Agreement has already been extended to Jersey, therefore I don't see the need for any further legislation. I am of the view that we should be proportional and practical. We already have energy which is low carbon, and we can be grateful to Jersey Electricity for that. Therefore, I'm not supportive of all of these solar panel farms. What I am supportive of, though, is spending our money practically to deal with the effects of climate change, because that's going to be a cost to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a population strategy, well, but it's difficult to have a plan. What we need is planning, because the situation is changing so quickly. The population is growing, and fortunately we're all planning or are going to live longer. I welcome that statistic as I get older. The big challenge is that our working age population, in the context of the growing population, is going to shrink. That's further compounded by the fall in birth rate, which is why it's so important we take action to encourage and support young people to stay here and have families, to grow that working age population. So yes, I support strategy, but it's ongoing planning rather than a single plan. In relation to energy, similar to Ian, we're heading in the right direction, but we have to be realistic. For example, we mustn't fall into traps of following the rest of the world. For example, the plan to ban petrol vehicles by 2030 is laudable, but simply unrealistic. And we must just bear that in mind. Keep our energy plans realistic, straightforward. We all want to protect the wonderful environment we live in and the biodiversity of our island, but I think we have to be quite measured and do it in a way that's affordable and practical and effective and workable for islanders. Thank you.
Well, I guess it's never too late to have an immigration and population policy. But for those of you interested in Jersey history, I remind you that in the last century, our chief environmental officer advised the states of Jersey that if we allow the population to go beyond 75,000, life in Jersey will become progressively more unpleasant. Where I understand officially now at about 110,000, so I simply say, judge for yourselves. As for the really interesting climate question, 50 years ago I was a member of Greenpeace, and I've actually been on board the Rainbow Warrior. You might remember it called into St Helier after it escaped arrest in Spain. I think I have fairly well-grounded environmentalist credentials, but I have to say Jersey's contribution to CO2 emissions on a global level is absolutely minuscule, and I see no reason at all why we should punish our local community trying to show off that we're world leading in CO2 emission preventions. This is nonsense, and I hear this phrase, I hear this world-leading phrase too often from our politicians. Look, let's get real. We're world-leading in dairy cows, tax avoidance, and right, you get the drift. So thanks for the clap.
Right, yes. My personal experience of population policy, I have carers looking after my wife, and I wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't for those carers. They come from Zimbabwe, and 3 of them and 2 have got psychology degrees, and 1 has got a degree in nursing. So when we look at attracting the right sort of people for the right sort of jobs, these individuals are overqualified. I asked the question, we need to keep our young people here on Jersey to cover all the jobs, I mean the whole spectrum of jobs, to manual, to high skilled and professional. So are we going to be doing caring jobs? Are we going to be doing the manual jobs? We need a population policy that covers the aging population. When I get to age 85, I feel 85 already, I'm only 60. When I get to 85, there are going to be twice as many people age 85 as there are today. We're going to have a huge, huge increase in these specific jobs that we need a firm policy to enable. When we going on to climate change, climate regulation, yes, I agree. The impact that Jersey has on global climate warming is negligible. Okay, sorry, I'll just hand over.
Regarding immigration and population, I came here on the 11th of March, 1973. And I went through the old Quali system, which was then 5-year, and as I was getting to the 5-year, they moved it to 10, and then they moved it to 20, and I lived in some pretty poor accommodation during that time. At the moment, we have a structure where people come in agriculture, hospitality, care workers, some on 9-month contracts, some up to 3. And it's not ideal, but it does work. Some come back to work on the potato season. And housing, again, is provided by some employers, and that does relieve some of the problems. And of course, we have exemptions for teachers, medics, and some finance workers. And although it's not ideal, it does tend to work at the moment. Regarding the climate issues, I understand that environmental health have some jurisdiction to oversee what is going on, and if there's any bad practice or things that are happening in that respect, I understand that they can intervene, and they have powers, I think the planning minister would confirm that, to act if that's not complying with standards. Okay.
Thank you. 2 very good questions. Population's my favourite subject. I could talk for hours. I'll try and keep it to 30 seconds. We've had policies in the past that fix a number, but with no strategy for getting there. Jersey can't do very much to control its population. It can't control the number of births, notwithstanding Martin's efforts. We can't control the number of deaths, number of people leaving the island, or people like me who come back to the island. I'm not a young person coming back to the island, I'm an older person coming back to the island. So, yeah, we need a broad strategy, and it has to be to try to keep young people here who want to stay, and to attract the people that we need in business. And we've heard already from other speakers on that. On climate change, frankly, I would scrap the existing carbon neutral roadmap for the good reason it actually hasn't been followed. When the target was set in 2022, it required an annual rate of reduction of emissions of 6% a year. So what did the government achieve in the first year, 2023? 0.2%, not even 0.6%. So we haven't followed the policy. Let's scrap that and sit back and take a longer look at what Jersey should be doing proportionately, and something that balances the work we should be doing on climate change, but against other needs, and let's make sure it's proportionate and appropriate to Jersey. Thank you.
Right, you've had 15 answers, so I'll be brief. In terms of immigration policy, I think flexibility is the watchword. We've got a fast aging population, which is going to change the nature of our workforce, so we do need flexibility on that. In terms of climate change, be careful how much you spend because you've got a hospital to pay for, and your health service is going to need a lot more money to look after a lot of older people with a diminishing workforce. So,
Yes, I agree with an immigration strategy. Every country needs it. But you know what? Human beings are human beings. They'll find their ways. I found my way here through my wife. And I think I'm not a bad immigrant here. So one of the things is many people are looking where to belong. And I think the best thing we can do is to be as welcoming as possible, to allow the good and check the bad out of the community. But also, I think one of the biggest things, like I said in my earlier speech, is how are we growing the local population? Because I think that's a sector that has been ignored. I hear colleagues saying we need more people here, but there is no much conversation about how we should make the environment affordable for young families to actually have more than one baby, because surely we are going to be struggling very soon. And talking about the issue to do with climate, the climate change scenario is a big thing. You had Trump said it is a hoax. Yet he's quite a big personality in his status of work, and that really hoodwinks a lot of us who maybe don't understand much what climate change is. Then over COVID, we saw what happened with the Iceland improved in terms of how the movement of transport reduced, everything reduced, and the climate actually improved. And so there is actually enough data to show that climate change is a reality. And in my opinion, I think for us in the island 9 by 5 mile, worrying about the rest of the world is a big threat for nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of the answers, and thank you for those questions. Right, we're going to move to this side of the room. I have a lady in orange at the back to ask her question first. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you think that Jersey has a revenue problem, a spending problem, or a courage problem? Thank you.
Would you mind just repeating, just so we can hear that one more time?
Spending problem, revenue problem, or courage problem?
Have you got it? Yeah? Are you sure you're clear? No. We are asking for that one more time. Sorry, I think it's the microphone. If you hold it nice and close.
Shall
Thank
I shout?
you. You can do.
Do you think Jersey has a spending problem, a revenue problem, or a courage problem?
Spending, revenue, and courage. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, that's question number 1, and we'll bring the microphone to the front, if we may, please, for a question down here. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Peter. I'm one of the candidates for the deputy seats for District 3, just to clear that up front. I've got a really awkward question for you, which I love. We have, I believe, 10 candidates in all the island who are going to walk straight into that assembly, which is not their fault. I mean, if they're not opposed, they're not opposed. However, 1 or 2 of them, maybe more, will seek a ministerial seat, which I believe is wrong, because there is no mandate. You should not walk in to be able to spend that much money and have that much control over people's lives. So my point is, and oh, by the way, none of the above doesn't count. Having more people like you than dislike you is not a mandate for government, in my opinion, and I'd do something about that in a proposition if I get in. I'd love to hear all the candidates' thoughts on whether or not that is an acceptable way to run our democracy.
Any clarification on the question? Is everyone clear on the question?
So, am I the one starting?
Okay, we're going to start with Elaine Miller. Thank you, Elaine. It should be, if it's green, it should be working. You might need to press the button to turn it on. Thank you. Can I help? Here, let me help.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Sam. Susanna, I think the answer is possibly all three. We do raise a lot of revenue. We're looking at $1 billion of revenue a year. That should be enough. Nobody wants to pay more tax. I bet nobody in this room wants to pay more tax. However, what I have seen in the last 2 years is that no minister is willing to cut their budget. Everybody wants more. We have heard quite a lot today about what we want to do, and quite a lot of it involves more spending. And for every person who says cut cost, there is another saying spend more. And it is a really difficult problem, and we all have to get to grips with that. We do have to be brave, and we all do have to make really sensible decisions about how we spend money. And people say cut waste, and you say, well, what waste? What is it that you don't like? How long it's taken to build a hospital? Yes, we have to get better at doing things like that, and we have to stop doing things that are nice to have because other places have them. We have to do what is right for Jersey, and we do need to make some brave decisions on that. Peter, I'm not exactly sure who the 10 you were talking about are going to walk in. Right. I think it's very, very disappointing that we don't have more constable elections. I think it's something that will gradually break, and we need just more people to come forward. What I find quite disappointing, in this district, in the last election, we had 8 candidates standing for 4 seats, and this time we've got 4 candidates standing for 3. I don't know why we're not having more new people coming forward. That's the issue that I see at the moment. We don't have enough new people coming forward. I congratulate those that are.
Thank you. If you pass it down the line this way, please. Thank you. Yeah, Helen, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for the question. Both of them particularly tricky. I must admit I agree with the Treasury Minister when she says we have all 3 of those problems. We do have a spending problem because we're spending more money than we bring in. We're not living within our means. And we do have a revenue problem because we have an economy which is stagnating and not growing at a rate that we would want it to bring in necessary income. I also think it's an interesting question around whether we have a courage problem. It's incumbent on politicians to make the difficult decisions, to decide what the priorities are. And in order to decide upon the priorities, our representatives have to listen to the public. I think we haven't had a fundamental spending review for many years, and I don't think we've had a discussion about what the future of Jersey should look like. We certainly haven't had that discussion since 2017. And in order to make those decisions, in order to find out how we're going to prioritise, I think that exercise probably needs to be revisited. The second question about is it acceptable that people drift into positions when they're unelected? I'm afraid that is where we are. That is democracy. If people don't put themselves forward for election, people get into the States Assembly, and there are a number of roles that need to be filled: ministers, assistant ministers, chairs of scrutiny panels. I think what we do need to do is look at what it is that's preventing people from coming forward, whether that is the level of income, whether that is the perception of politicians. I think nobody in this room would deny that politicians sometimes get a hard time with social media and other things.
Thank you. Do we have a courage problem? I was scared you were going to ask that. Look, Jersey's tax system, tax and spend model is broken, and it has been for a very long time. We have a tax system that is filled with inequities and that has been adjusted over the various years to meet purposes that it then hasn't ended up meeting. GST was introduced to fill the black hole from moving to 0.10. We were promised it would stay at 3%. It then went up to 5%. It didn't fill the black hole that it was meant to fill. And part of that is because we also have a spending problem where we have departments that will often create processes that aren't necessary. Our IT function in government is crazy, how departments don't talk to one another and how a job that should take half an hour can end up taking a week because of it. The crazy amounts of money that are wasted all because of that. That then puts more pressure on the tax system, which ultimately hits ordinary people because we're not looking at other tax changes as a result of it. All of that is a problem, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's down to courage. I would say that it's actually down to partly what Peter was getting at, which is that we don't have an effective democratic system that enables the public of Jersey to choose a government that will have a full mandate to get on with things. Yes, it will do things that might be a bit unpopular, but that will be balanced against the popular stuff that it does, that it got its mandate for. And we're not going to get that when we have an electoral system that is so multi-layered. That's one reason why the deputies contesters are under-contested, because we chose to add another layer into the electoral system. We should have one type of states member elected on an equal basis and give the public the opportunity to pick the government that it wants. And if that government fails to deliver on tax and spend, it's much easier to kick them out and replace them with another one.
Hello. Susanna, I think it's Susanna, isn't it? Yes, I think we've got all three, in truth. We have an emerging revenue problem, and that's largely because we've increased so much regulation, there's so much additional red tape, there's so much bureaucracy. It's actually quite difficult doing business in Jersey now. We need to try and strip a lot of that away to a proportionate level so that businesses can prosper, employ more people, generate more economic activity and more tax revenue to pay for the public services that we all desire. And particularly, Tom was making the point about the cost of the hospital. We need more revenue to help pay for all these things. On the spending side, we're spending too much. And we're spending it in the wrong areas. In middle management, we're spending too much. There has been some attempt by government to cut down on consultants, that's good, and to put a freeze in recruitment, also good. We're not going far enough, fast enough. When I was Treasury Minister back in 2018, when I retired, we were spending 750 million. It's now 1.2 billion and an extra 2,000 staff. So we need to really think of different ways of doing things and utilizing technology to a greater extent, so that services are delivered in a more efficient and effective manner. We also need to go back to proper longer-term thinking and planning, medium-term financial plan. I took through the states. It was a 4-year envelope, and it put some control into states departments' expenditure. Since then, every year from 2019, when that ended, what's happened? We've run deficits. Last year, as I was mentioning, £118 million deficit. And for each of the other years, there's been large deficits. It's accumulating, and it's not really good enough. On the courage side of things, what's actually happening is that people don't want to stand because it's quite a toxic environment. I've tried very hard to get people to stand for election. They don't want to. I failed. That's why I'm standing here. But really, we need more people coming forward to do their bit, and I know the environment is not easy. As far as Peter's concerned on candidates, none of the above got too many votes in St Saviour.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Susanna. We don't have a spending problem if we increase our revenue. We won't have a revenue problem if we reduce our spending. The problem we do have is that the two are too far apart at the moment and in the wrong direction. Government needs to find ways of reducing its expenditure before it starts hitting for more taxes or more charges. But I do believe that we need to do more user pays and more polluter pays as one way of making sure the right people pay for the services they receive, but at the same time as helping those that can't afford to pay for those services. As for courage, I think you've got some courageous people on this table tonight, not necessarily the states members, but the ones that have put themselves forward to become states members, because it's not an easy job and you get a lot of stick and you need to have very tough skin. As for the candidates, Peter, I would say there's at least 3 on this table tonight that have gone straight into ministry from the first time they've come into government. I think they've all been pretty successful. So the right people for the right job for me, and of course the States Assembly decides. But if we get the right candidates coming forward, there's no reason why people cannot come straight into the States Assembly and run very successful ministries.
Thank you. Well, my understanding of economics is a bit like Mr. McCorber. You don't spend more than you earn. And that's what we need to be looking at. Either we need to earn more or we need to spend less. And we probably need to spend less. The only way we're going to spend more is if we improve the economy, and that's by bringing in other industries. There's going to be lots of opportunities on the digital format which could be made use of locally, especially with local talent. As for elected people, yes, it's it's biased. Even with the constables as it is now, we got the Constable of St Helier represents about a third of the population, whereas the Constable of St Mary really only represents about 1,200 people. So that really should be looked at. It's not democratic anyway. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm prepared to have a look and think about it. Thank you.
Thank you for the interesting question. I think some of it's fairly straightforward. I think you're right, we're spending too much to what we're getting in. However, this is why it is my belief that if you're bringing in laws and legislation and regulations, every time you do that, you should be putting in the cost of what that's going to be. Because we're going down the route, and we have done for a number of years now, where we've ended up with lots and lots of regulations, and you'll probably find that those regulations are probably actually not really being effectively administered, because actually there isn't probably the staff there to do them anyway. So I think everything that is brought forward should be costed properly. But that is also part of our democratic system, whereby states members, all 49, can bring forward propositions to actually ask for something and ask for some money to be spent on something. Well, that's then agreed by 25 of the Assembly. So, of course, that also adds another layer to what you may not have anticipated that you're going to have to spend money on. So, again, I think that all of those things, when people bring propositions, it should be properly costed so we have a full idea of what it's going to cost. I don't necessarily think a yearly budget's a good idea. I, like others, think that it should be on a rolling programme as opposed to where we are now. In relation to your question, it is difficult because you do get members that are unopposed. But is that their fault? Not really. They can't change that. And I do think, although it's not an ideal, I do actually think that when whoever's selected as the Chief Minister makes the selection of who they want to serve them in the government, and that is their personal choice. And I think sometimes that is a good thing to have, that you can choose who you think you can work with the best. So I fully appreciate what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but...
But what? So, I mean, for me, it's obviously very clear that we are spending more than what we're bringing in. And I just want to focus a little bit on the amount of spending, because for me, that's really a real concern, especially with two young kids who I desperately want to potentially choose to come back here one day. Cutting government waste, I think, is something that we do need to focus on with the new elected government from June the 7th. That is something we need to look at, whether it's looking at task force systems to find out where this waste is coming from, and trying to then redistribute taxpayers' money into the right places. That's something that I do think we need to think very carefully about. But we cannot continue to spend the way that we are. And if elected, I will certainly be pushing for that attitude whilst we figure out exactly how much money do we have and where does it need to be directed. I don't think we can rush taxpayers' money into more big spending decisions. And I'd actually like to introduce some accountability measures for bigger spends to make sure that we are thinking twice or 3 times or 4 times, if required, to make sure that we are making the right decisions and we're not wasting more money on poor decision making. To your point, Peter, it's funny because, I'm obviously here standing one of the newbies, and, I've had so many conversations and meetings. It's been really eye-opening for me, and something that has been coming back to me around current government culture is this toxicity, that people aren't working together, that it's divisive, and we have a population of 110,000 people, and all of us are here tonight asking for your vote, saying that we're going to work together better. I hope we're all telling the truth because, for me, I come from team sport, and you don't win unless you work together. It doesn't matter what your walk of life is, it doesn't matter where you stand politically. The truth is, if we haven't got the purpose of this island at the heart of every single political decision, we'll fail.
We'll need to pause there. Thank you very much, Serena. Ian.
Thank you. The truth, of course, is it's all about the economy. My wife and I try to teach our girls that whenever they're given any money or they get money for doing a job, that they should save some, they should spend some, and they should give some. And those basic principles for managing a budget are really should be carried through into government. But it's about the economy. Because if the economy isn't growing and functioning and providing good jobs and providing revenue to government, then we are in a difficult situation. I've been working on the Financial Services Competitiveness Programme. Your deputy over here has been working on the Future Economy Programme. There are strategies, there is work that can be done, and I am optimistic about the next 4 years. But our economy is going to be transformed, and it's going to be transformed by digital and AI. But if we work together as a team, as we've just been hearing, and we are courageous, because I believe islanders are courageous, I don't think it's a matter of courage. If we work together as a community, I believe that we can deal with those challenges, and in 4 years' time, we can be more prosperous, we can have better jobs, and we can have our young children that want to stay and want to come back. So I'm hopeful and optimistic. Peter, your question, it's difficult to answer. You can only stand against those people who stand against you. The truth of the matter is the challenges we face and the global turmoil that surrounds us means that every single member that is elected has got to put their hand to the plough. We can't afford division, whether we're a party member or we're an independent. We can no longer afford that division. And I am, as I say, optimistic. Candidates should also, though, be honest with the electorate about the jobs that they would like to do. I think that's the way to deal with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I might sound a little bit biased, but I think this government has been working more closely together than previous governments. It's a government that's more representative of the Assembly. And if there's a minister here that disagrees for me, then put your hand up. And I don't see any hands, so I'll take that as acquiescence. Spending and revenue. One of the first things I found out when I became Chief Minister is it's all about the money. Everybody wants more money, and they come with compelling arguments as to why they should have more money. I think the challenge we have is prioritisation. It's a bit like that Morecambe and Wise sketch. You're playing all the right notes, but in the wrong order. We sometimes do that with our spending. And that's why it's so important we have a government and an assembly that listens carefully and prioritises carefully, so the limited money we do have is spent in the right places. That's always going to be a challenge, but that's where we must focus. In relation to, I wish every single seat was contested. I support senators. I support constables. I support the parish system because it's unique. We're a small island with 100,000 people, and that's always worked for us. But I don't think any member should be excluded because they only had to face none of the above in the elections. We must get the best people for the best jobs to do the best things for Jersey. Thank you.
Well, let's talk spending. And I wonder how many of you know that the Cabinet Office has already spent over £900,000 looking into the offshore wind farm. And having done that, they suddenly decided it might be a good idea if we ask England and France whether they might be interested in purchasing the extra energy that we will produce. Waste or incompetence? Sorry, that should have been the first question before anything else was followed up. Can we sell it to you? And who knows? I would also like to look at saving our licence trade. Pubs, bars, restaurants, most of us use them. They're double taxed. You pay alcohol duty as the booze arrives, and then all these operations pay GST on top of that. I would just simply say, right, give them a break. We want to save the local hospitality, leisure industry. Scrap alcohol duty for a year, for 2 years, or perhaps entirely. Maybe just temporarily. And by the way, let me remind you about the value of GST. Income tax, look at what you earn. And then they dive into your wallet and take the money out. No questions. GST, you decide whether you want a top-of-the-range Mercedes or a mini Metro. You decide how much GST you pay. That is the huge advantage of that tax, and it also takes money off rich people without them really realizing it. Now, constituency system we've had, I think, has been an absolute unmitigated disaster. Thank goodness we got some senators back. I submitted to the Electoral Commission an idea for all-Ireland vote. It went down better in Guernsey, by the way.
Thank you. We'll have to stop you there.
Featured in their referendum.
I think that we are naturally going into, as far as innovation and AI are concerned, there's going to be a huge shift in the job market. So spending is going to go through a natural cycle. We go through these cycles, and what's going to happen is that I think that revenue is a little bit easier to control than spending at the moment, but with AI, I think we're going to see a completely different change there. But going on to the situation with ministers and the electorate, if we haven't got the field to choose from, then we just have to go with what we've got. God forbid if we get into a situation where no one puts their name forward and we have to have another election. So what we need to do is we need to have a bloody good look at what the problem is. We need to address voter apathy. We need to address what younger people want. We need to get new blood into the system. We need the flexibility of addressing issues a lot easier than we do at the moment. That's the way I see it as someone who's come to the game relatively new. So that's it. I'll hand over to it.
You mentioned the word courage, and nobody else has mentioned it, so I will, because if elected, I dare do something, and I'll be looking at things, because I would ask you all to take that up and have a good look, because in 2023, £40 million was paid to people outside the island to do something or other. I'm not sure what. We actually run at a deficit of about 120 million. That's topped up by the investment income from the Strategic Reserve and the Social Security Fund. That's our money. That's our money, which is actually putting the balance back. And if you look at the Social Security Fund, the states have reduced their contributions by about £600 million, and that goes on until 2029. That was set up in 1948, the Insular Insurance Fund, and it's between the workers, the employers, and the government are letting us down here. They're using that money to prop up the economy, and it was based on a third, and they're not doing that, and it can't continue. Regarding members of the states, I think that's been actually flogged to death. You know, it would be just us talking about ourselves again, and I don't think it's the right thing to do at this time. There's too many other problems on the horizon.
Thank you, and thank you for the two questions. Yes, we have a spending problem. The Fiscal Policy Panel pointed out that between 2022 and 2025, government day-to-day spending increased by 13% a year. And one reason for that increase is the rise in the number of people in the public sector, which increased from 7,700 in 2018 to 9,900 in 2025. Now, part of that was much needed increase in health and education, but not all of it. So we need to bring public spending under control. It's not necessarily or mainly about cutting services. We can do things better. As an example, a charity in which I'm involved recently received a tax rebate. Very welcome, but by a check. Really? And it took an hour to pay it into the bank for various reasons. So there's scope for us to do things rather better. On the question of elections, let's be thankful that we have a democracy and that people are free to stand. That's not the case in many other parts of the world. Now, in some cases, constables are not contested because generally the electorate think they've done a rather good job. And you shouldn't criticize them for that. My own parish of St. Clement, I think that is the position. As for chief ministers, I think that's up to the chief minister. They should choose the people they think best able to do the job. And remember, in many countries, ministers are not necessarily elected members. Even in Britain, the current prisons minister, John Timpson, outstanding minister, has never been in Parliament before, but he's doing a great job with huge experience that he's had before. Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. I think it's worth taking what Guy Dufay had to say about the wind farm extremely seriously.
Nice and close, please, Tom. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, it's worth taking Guy Dufay's comments on the wind farm seriously because they're perfectly true. In terms of the two questions, the answer is yes to both of them. The courage problem, I think, relates to the revenue issue because it may sound counterintuitive, but I think we should be looking to invest in making ourselves more efficient and more attractive at this point in time to get the economy going. And I make no apology for that. And as far as holding office, if you haven't faced an election, I think apathy isn't the fault of the person concerned. And if they're the right person for the job, they shouldn't be precluded from doing what I think they've got a right to do.
All the problems mentioned have been reported on paper. We've read them. I'm not in government, but we all agree that there is problem in spending, there's problem in how to manage the revenue. And courage, I'm wondering, where is the courage? Is the problem the courage among the leaders or the courage among the electorates? Because the problem is, in my opinion, we see the leaders offer themselves to come to leadership, but we put them back all the time. Why are we putting back people that are going to make the same mistakes? You cannot plant tomatoes and expect something else. You get tomatoes all the time. So my issue is the voters, okay? We are now having 90 people who have offered themselves, including those who have been in office. That means we could actually do away with all the guys that have been in office for how many years and try a new breed. Why not? Let's try a new breed. We are here. I'm a newbie. You know what? I come green. Why not try me? You're bound to get something better. If not, I have room to learn, and there will be our teachers from the side. However, when we talk about how to run the government, I think again the issue about people power. You know, they say where two elephants fight in Africa, right? We have a lot of elephants, especially in Uganda. Where two elephants fight, you know what happens? It's the grass that suffers. Who are the grass? So we are thinking we want to have parties, we want to elect 49 people, and if these 49 people are not going to cooperate, those are 49 elephants. How much grass is going to suffer? So it is important for us to actually check the people we are electing into offices and follow them through their time of office and weed them out as time comes. This is the time for weeding and getting the right thing in, the right people in office. Thank you very much.
And Bernard.
Okay, I'll try and be sensible about this. Yes, we have a revenue problem. Yes, we have a spending problem. Yes, we have a courage problem. But above all, we have a design problem. We have a problem in design thinking and the failure to think about how we want our services to be in the future. So there's little point in cutting 2,000 people off the head count to go back to previous levels if we just transfer that from the wage bill to the benefits bill. So we've got to think about how we want to design our services. And the model for this is often seen as Singapore, who explicitly set out to redesign their society to become more efficient and to generate more tax and to generate better services. Some of that was brought over into Greater Manchester. Greater Manchester has a 3.5% growth rate. It's the highest outside London because it does things that we should be doing here. It has a process of generating local wealth by procuring within the area. So there are things we can do in terms of design. But I want to kind of think about Peter's question about why people are not coming forward. And one of the things that you learn in health very quickly, if there's a problem, the solution usually lies outside the room, because that's reassuring. The solution is either more money or more staff. So I want us to look inside this room now and think about the gatekeeping function of the senator's role. So the senator's role has been set forward as a promotion from deputy to minister. It's set out as being something you can only do if you have been a deputy. It's set out as something that actually is not for first-time candidates, for people who want to get a promotion into government. And every time we see senators as a promotion, as a hierarchy, we discourage people stepping forward as deputies. So look inside the room.
Thank you. That brings us to a close, and that brings us to time. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you who asked a question. I appreciate that we've not had time for many questions because of having so many candidates, which is great. But please do join us for more Hustings events. We're going to be at the Great Hall tomorrow at Highlands College, so do join us there. If I could just mention a few things before everybody leaves. We have had some technical problems this evening, so apologies for that with the live feed. If you are joining us on the recording, thank you very much for your patience and for watching that. If you would like to get in touch with any of the candidates and ask them any questions, please do so. You can get hold of their details on the vote.je website. In addition to that, manifesto booklets will start to be delivered to homes on the 11th of May. If you applied for a postal vote, please remember that your ballot papers need to be received by the Gref by 12 noon on the 7th of June. And don't forget, if you're going on holiday, if you're not going to be here for the election itself on Sunday the 7th of June, then you can vote early and you can go to St Paul's Centre between the 26th of May and the 1st of June to do that. Polling stations on the day are open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. Please take your photo ID with you. That's really important. And you can get further information, all the information that you need, on the vote.je website. To all of you and to all of our candidates, thank you. Have a very good evening.